videos that are getting into the hands of the students they work with to keep them just connected and still seeing each other without being distant. They do miss seeing one another. And that's pretty much it. I mean, on top of all the other things we got going on, that's pretty much it.
Thanks for being here today, everyone, and thank you to all of our amazing donors who keep everything running here in Broward County. Thank you to everybody who has made your gift during this crazy time before. Thank you for going to make a gift. Thank you so much for your contributions to the COVID-19 campaign. You all are helping our own community in lots of different areas. So we really appreciate everything that you all are doing. So thanks for joining us for the Lunch and Learn webinars. We have a really exciting one today. It's going to be very interactive. So do make sure that you have asked your questions. Share your thoughts with us. You can do that over in the little chat box, and you can also unmute yourself if you feel comfortable doing it that way as well. Today, we have Rafis with us. Just to give you a little background on him, he currently serves as the Director of Clinical Coordination for United Way of Broward County, where he works closely with therapists, providing mental health services to MSD Parkland first responders and families directly affected by the tragedy. Mr. Nin also remains in active practice as a trauma psychotherapist, working with adults who are dealing with the effects of trauma and suicide loss, and facilitating supporting groups for parents and families who have lost a loved one to suicide loss. Mr. Nin is a licensed clinical worker and fully trained EMDR therapist. Now, I looked that up, and that is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is extremely interesting. And he is fully trained by EMDRIA. So Mr. Nin has over 21 years combined experience of clinical practice in medical settings and community agencies. He is currently working on completing his dissertation research to meet requirements for his PhD in family therapy at Nova Southeastern University in Davie, Florida. So his dissertation research is on the lived experience of parents bereaved by suicide loss using a qualitative methodology. So without further ado, Mr. Nin, if you would like to start, we're very excited to hear from you, and thank you for presenting.
Thank you, everyone. I'm excited to be here. Thank you again for taking your time. I know this is your lunch time, and we are really grateful to have here. When I was approached to do this, I figured that at that time we just had gone into this being a pandemic, and I thought, okay, there's some lessons here that we could share. And so today I will share some lessons about what I've learned from trauma and loss. And more than ever, if 4 weeks later into this, I could say this is hopefully information that could be useful to you. We'll keep it short, interactive. Catherine is going to help with your questions, and feel free to stop or interrupt at any time. The first thing I want to share is actually I want to ask 3 questions. I want to ask 3 different dates. So I want the people that are a little younger, what were you doing on October 17, 1985? So if you could go back in your mind, October 17, 1985. Another date, I will give you 3 days. The other date is September 11, 2001, a Tuesday. What were you doing that day? If you could go back to what were you doing that day? And the last day, for those people that are a little bit younger, or maybe we want to come back to this date and people are saying, well, we're in 2020. So let me give you this date, March 11, 2020. What were you doing on those dates? And this is just for you to think about how trauma works. I'll tell you what I was doing on those dates. On October 17, 1985, I lost my dad to suicide. So I will never forget that date. And that's a date in my calendar, in my life, that still to this day, I remember. September 11, many of you, if you're a New Yorker or if you live in America, we were attacked by terrorists. You were soiled. About 3,000 people died that day. Very similar to what's happening today. Many people are dying, many uncertainty in this country. And the latest is March 11, 2020. And that's the day that the World Health Organization declared this to be a pandemic. I remember this day. I remember seeing the news update. And at that time, it did not mean much to me or to many of you guys. But I went back and I read at the news at the World Health Organization. At that time, March 11, they said it's going to be a pandemic. It means that's going to spread. It's an epidemic that is spreading to many countries. At that time, there were 114 countries already that had cases of COVID-19. Today, we have 185 countries. So this is what trauma is. This is what loss is. This is what grief is. And this is what I want to share with you. I work with clients just like me who have experienced horrible events or terrific event that have changed their life, that have given them an after and a before and an after. So today I want to share with you some of those lessons. And I want to begin by acknowledging that, make sure that this is working. Okay, here, I'll move forward. Here, how do I move forward? Okay, so, and just to acknowledge that grieving and grief is not about just physical death. Loss and grief are very real right now. Like I said, the world as we know has changed. We might be losing, grief has to do with losing anything. Could be object loss, could be relational losses, could be identity, raw identity, many things we have lost. And I was listening to this podcast by Brené Brown with a special guest, David Kessler, who's one of the pioneers in grief therapy, who together with Kubler-Ross wrote one of the books on death and dying. And he said this quote, he said, "We are dealing with the collective loss of the world we knew. The world as we knew it is gone forever." So this idea that our life is changed now. We will be different. Our life will be different now. We would always think about what the world was before COVID-19, before this pandemic. Our life will never be the same. And that's what trauma or traumatic events do to our life. It changes us. So there's many lessons that I've learned, and there's many clinical interventions, and researchers have done many things that we could learn today. And I could share with some of you that I share with my clients, and I hopefully this will bring it together. Some of you might think I haven't lost anyone yet, or I haven't lost anything. So just think of grief as any loss. But let me put this in perspective. Let me ask you this question. What might be some changes? This is the part where we could be a little interactive. I want to hear from some of you. What might be some changes that you're experiencing now? So what are some of the changes? And you could type in the chat, or you could just share. I mean, how has your life changed? How has things changed because of this pandemic? We're in the middle of the pandemic. I'm in my living room giving a presentation to many people, and we're not in a conference room. How else have your life changed? And I want to hear from some people.
Somebody responded with social isolation.
Social isolation is a real thing.
And Rafis, I'll tell you, I wear a mask around my neck that I put on frequently and often. And obviously that I'm 56 years old, that has never been a part of my daily activity, my vernacular, or how, you know, we respond or how we communicate, to be able to have a mask and gloves and hand sanitizer at all times and trying to get all of those materials to all people in our community is a whole new way of operating, and not having personal interaction for me is very difficult, and for so many others. So this has been a very trying time, and just a whole new way of thinking, behaving, thinking through your next interaction and how you're going to relate and respond to the community, but to each other and our families, etc. So thanks for putting this on today, Rafis.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. I mean, for me, I wash my hands now more than ever. And so I think, yeah, we have masks. We all have masks. I have masks here as well. And how else has changed for you?
We have other people who have responded that it's become much more difficult to acquire basic needs, and I haven't seen my friends in over a month, it feels like. That might actually be a fact. I might not just not feel that way. I don't visit my parents and they live nearby. Homeschooling. I have had to learn how to be, that's a big one. I have had to learn how to be both a stay-at-home mother, preschool teacher, and work full-time from home at the same time. I don't want to get my parents sick, working full-time and teaching my son full-time, can't visit family, visiting with friends and family via Skype and FaceTime only, hearing others more than ever, mom guilt is higher than ever, feel that. My kids are in California. There are 2 doctors. I can't see them. I couldn't watch my granddaughter to help them out when they were in quarantine due to exposure. These are all really significant things.
Good, and I have a follow-up question. So with all those changes, think about the losses that we have. So just like we talk about, we isolation, we have role changes. We have to be now teachers, parents, you know, super mom, super dad. We have to be constant there. We have our family, sometimes maybe too close, too far. And we have a limit contact with people, especially like Kathleen says, if we are social being like I am as well, then we miss people. We don't see people. I am actually live alone, and I've been here for 4 weeks by myself just when I go see my parents, and I just see my mom at the door, who's 73 as well. So it changes. So with that in mind, we think about also losses, and that's where I want to make the connection. Every time there is changes and situation in this way, there's losses. We have lost so much. We have lost independence, lost freedom. What else have we lost? What else people are experiencing? And that's the real loss. We lost connection with direct contact. What else are people feeling that they have lost?
Loss of trust.
Yes.
I'd say probably mental health for a lot of people.
Yeah, the mental health.
Is deteriorating.
Revenue, income.
Revenue and income, financial loss is a big one. It's an actual tangible loss.
Loss of social gatherings.
Social gathering is a big one.
I'll just add in that holidays are this past weekend or during this week, and the way that holidays are being celebrated. I know for a lot of people, including my family, it's much different and a lot smaller than usual.
Yeah, and spirituality and faith is a big one. So we lose that connection of going to religious services or seeing people. Maybe there are families that you see each other only once a year for Easter. You lose that. So it's real losses. On top of that, we have a pandemic, and we have the threat that anyone could get infected at any moment. And so combine that with the losses, this is what trauma does. And imagine why this is what I see. And now more than ever, I think one thing that I'm seeing is that we will have empathy. We will really have, most of us now that work in the field, and you guys that are professional and always looking way to help clients, you'll be able to connect more when a client tell you they're going to a trauma or an event, because now you understand how it changes, how it really changes people. So thank you for sharing that. That's some of the things. I'm gonna move now to share some things for some of you that might not be aware or might not be that familiar with trauma, how it works. What are some of the reactions that we could expect? How do we usually experience trauma? And I'm going to refer here to loss again as a way to think of loss now that we made it more tangible, more real, all those things that we're losing. And that's sometimes when we feel like we want to cry. I've heard from people, they just feel like they just want to cry. They just feel sad, or they just feel many emotions. So how do we usually experience loss and grief and trauma? So research shows that we experience this in different stages. How many of you guys are familiar with the stages of Kubler-Ross and the 5 stages of grief? So this is this idea in grief, and now you know that grief doesn't mean that people have died or you lost someone, which we do have to acknowledge that some people have passed. And this is a real situation for many people. So there is the stages here. If you could look at the screen, they go this way. This is the best graph that I found. It goes in different directions. This idea that is linear, that it goes like, I go through the stage, I go to the next stage. So I like to think of them as emotions. These are our emotions that we feel. The first one being shock and denial, just denial. This cannot be happening. This is not happening. I think regardless of your political parties, this is why many people could not believe this is a real pandemic. This cannot be a pandemic. This cannot be happening, because it was too much to believe that we're going to lose people, that so many people are going to die, that the country is going to be shut down. So that reality at first, to help us survive, it's okay to feel like, I can't believe this is happening. And that's denial. From there, we go into anger. And that's when you come, like me, if you're a New Yorker or from up north, you go, what the F is happening? I can't believe it's freaking happening. You get really angry, you get upset. Now I'm gonna have to stay home and I don't like to be home. And so that's anger. Then we're going actually clockwise. Then depression. Depression is when you just, there's not much going on. Many of you felt depressed, felt sad. You know what depression, we work with depression. And bargaining. That's when you start bargaining, and that's the word right there. And then there was this idea that people move into acceptance, that if we reach acceptance, we reach this kind of holy place where everything gets good. What research shows, and myself that have lost someone to suicide and lost people in my life, and if you lost someone, you realize that acceptance doesn't solve everything. I mean, it helps to heal. And so what they kept doing, the researcher, was that they found another stage. They realized, we have David who went on and did research and found another stage. And before I share that stage, I'm going to show you this one. So it goes like this. This is more like, again, it's not a linear. It's more like this. We'll go to shock, denial. Oh my God, the fear. How many of you feeling fear right now? Numbness, right? Think about this when you first heard about this, or the first few weeks that we've been going. Sometime I realized, I don't know how we got here. It's been 4 weeks already. So some numb, blame. This is happening. If you look at social media, this is happening big time. We're blaming China, that country, this country. We're blaming that party, this party. We're blaming everyone. That's a reaction to grief, a reaction to traumatic event. Then we go to anger. Many people are angry. Then we're going to shaming. That part of the anger was shaming. If you look at here, shaming is a big one. Again, you know, you're stupid. How can you ask that stupid question? How can you do this? Anxiety. Anxiety is a big one. I know Cohen, you know, one of the participants has said, mental health. Many clients, many people are more anxious now. If you suffer from anxiety, now you're more anxious because you have a real situation. There are some things we cannot control. Some of you were saying that the loss of trust, of safety, going outside. You don't know who could infect you now. You don't know who to trust. I went to the supermarket yesterday and I had a mask and everything. I still was like, why are you getting too close to me? I didn't want people to get close to me. I didn't even want to interact with the cashier because I was afraid. There's that real fear. And then depression, and that's a real one. We're going to go, many people are going to go through that. Some people might be there now where you're like, I don't even want to even get out of bed. I don't want to look at one more news flash or update. Lack of energy. Some people feeling helpless. They're just like, I don't know, and then from there we move to bargaining, or we'll go back to, we could go back and forward. So this idea that we could go from one stage to another. That's why I like to think of them as emotions. Just an emotional state that we're feeling. Just this idea that we're really feeling this different emotion. Acceptance. Some of us got there real quick. I mean, this is happening. What can we do? What can we do to help people? We need to get ready. And so maybe we went to acceptance first. This is happening. This is going to happen. And then here's what the latest research shows, that we need to get to a sixth stage, number 6. There's a sixth stage, which David Kessler, in finding meaning in his research after losing his own son and looking at the work of Kubler-Ross and many people, he realized people need to find meaning. The sixth stage is finding meaning. How can you make meaning of this? And one thing that I learned from trauma is that there's the idea of post-traumatic growth, resilience, that we could become better, that we could get out of this, and we will learn and we'll be stronger, and there's meaning out of this. So many people, their life will change for good. We'll find many meanings. Maybe we'll find our life calling now. Now we realize, maybe I want to work from home. Maybe I'd never want to be home. So think about that. That's the sixth stage. So that's the model. And the idea is that people need to find meaning. because out of all this horrible, the idea came also inspired by Viktor Frankl work, Search for Significance, and this idea that out of the darkest places, out of the darkest horrible events, September 11, like I mentioned, out of that could come light, good things, just like we're doing at United Way. We're helping people, just like you guys are doing. You're donating, you're giving, you're making a difference, just like healthcare providers are going there, like people are going feeding the home. Out of this could come good, out of dark could come good. And that's the idea we're finding meaning. So because of my own loss on that October 17, I became a therapist that works with trauma. And now I run groups to help people that have gone through what I went through, of losing someone to this horrible, horrible suicide. And so maybe there is some meaning. So I want to invite you, inspire you with this, that out of all the stages, after all this is over, there's meaning and we could get some things out of this. So any questions so far? Okay. We're gonna go next. This is the idea of that when we find this meaning, we find it by acknowledging the loss. So this is what David Kessler, who created this 6th stage of grief, who created this research, he says every loss has meaning, and all losses, whether it's financial, whether it's whatever losses, are to be grieved and witnessed. And how can we witness? We could talk to each other. We could be there for each other. We could just call someone. We have Skype, we have cell phone, we have regular audio where you just make a phone call and say, I am feeling this loss. I just lost my best friend. I just lost my coworker. I just lost this great mentor in my community. I don't know what's happening. And that's the idea, that we could be witness to each other, that we could acknowledge what we're feeling. I feel like crying right now. You could just call someone and just text someone, acknowledge what you're feeling. And when we do that, then we could move past grief. That's why I titled this presentation, Moving Forward. I know we talk about the naming this, finding ground. And I say, let's just talk about moving forward. Maybe we're not ready to move forward, and I don't think we are in many ways, but I wanted to kind of instill this idea that we can move forward. After we experience, after we go through this, there's always the possibility that we can move forward. Any questions in the text so far? So I wanted to connect that really quickly. We won't go too much into it, but what is the trauma? So trauma, people talk about trauma, and so trauma is just a traumatic event for many people. One day you wake up, you hear the news. One day you wake up and you get a phone call. For so many clients and many people that we work with, many of our family and friends, for the first time, are going to go through this horrible, traumatic, horrible situation. I mean, I only see the news sometimes, having a family member and not able to say goodbye to them in the deathbed, not able to have a funeral. I mean, social, like many of you mentioned, religious, social connection. Funerals are important. This is where you have eulogy. This is where you connect. This is where you really connect and grieve together. We don't have that for many people. So this idea of trauma comes from many research, and the idea is that people go through trauma. It's just an event. It's a series of events that we experience, and how that has an effect on us, on our mental health. This is the definition by SAMHSA. I will not go over for the sake of time, and because I will go share this PowerPoint. Also because after many years of working with trauma, I have a formula, and it really comes from research. And it's this idea. This is a simple one, especially if you like math or you're not a therapist. Trauma is the sum, the accumulation of an event, in my case, my father, or 9/11, or this pandemic, or losing your job, or the world shutting down, the experience you are having, that you have, and then the effect that it has. Perception is a big one. Many people go through horrible situation and it doesn't affect them. There's many adverse reaction, and there's research that is being done on the adverse reaction experiences. Not everyone, some people become better, but some people, when they experience trauma, or it has an effect on them, that they're not able to move forward. So if you could connect it to this presentation, when you have a trauma, it's very hard to move forward. That's why, again, I put in my title, and I always try to encourage clients moving forward. And one good to assess how affecting the trauma is to that person, are they able to move forward? If you have someone that are your friend next to you or people near you, and they're saying, I cannot move forward, I cannot get out of bed, I cannot really go on, this means that something happened or they're reacting in a traumatic way. Any questions so far, Catherine? No? Okay, so we almost done, but I want to,
yeah.
Go ahead.
In your experience, what factors tend to protect people who go through adverse experiences from experiencing that as trauma?
I think there's many research that there's protective factor, and this idea that if we have certain things in our life, it protected us. Research says that people have protective factors, such as if you come from a loving home, if you don't have that much deficit, but I don't like to go too much into it because really a trauma is an unexpected things. A shoe falls from the sky. When the shoe drop and you're like, what is happening? Sometimes it doesn't matter how much protective factors you have, trauma is going to happen. If you get a call that someone that you care about were lost to a car accident, this David Kessler lost his son in a traumatic way. He got a phone call, and again, he had a 5-stager. He wrote the book. I didn't have to come to find meaning why my son passed away. I work with many clients that lose someone to suicide. Like Miss Jackie, everyone knows in the community, and she lost her son. So out of that comes this maybe life calling to help others. So there are protective factors, and there's many research about it. I just feel that sometimes it doesn't matter how many protective factors we have. When something hit us, it takes the wind out of us. It's just, we can't even breathe. Because sometimes, I just say that, because sometimes as therapists, we could do harm to clients by saying, you know, oh, you shouldn't have this protective factor. Maybe you didn't have a good home. Or clients use that and say, oh, because my mom, you know, because I was abused, because I went through this, because I'm this is why I got this trauma. Again, but I think it's important to know there is protective factors, especially if you have children and you're raising children co-ed. That's a good question. I would say it's great for people that are raising kids and to prevent them and prepare them for trauma. And you're right. People that have done research, people that go into the military and suffer from PTSD, the research connection is that people that did not have those protecting factor are the people that will experience PTSD when they come back from being in the front line. So that's what the research shows. But again, let's hope that even if you don't have protective factor, by having this awareness and by having connection will help us. Thank you for the question. Did that help?
That's great.
Okay, thank you. How do we experience traumatic events? So actually it's very similar. We also have now, with research, we have five reactions, and this is what we have now. There's 5 responses to trauma. And the idea is that if you can think of yourself as being out and there's a lion or someone coming to you, researcher Levine and Levine talks about a lot about this. There's animal instincts to protect us. So you could either fly, you could run, or you could hide, or you could freeze. So there's more research now when you think about physiological changes and reaction to our nervous system. We also actually could collapse. And this is I want to pay attention to people that are cultural. Many culture around the Caribbean, myself, and from the Caribbean, many Hispanic and many Latin American, and many other African as well, many cultures, they have this reaction where people just faint, they just pass out. Someone is told, your son just died, or this just happened. You know, usually there's this, they just scream and pass out. They need this is the body a way to freeze and conserve energy. Sometimes you tell someone this bad news, they say, I just need a moment, and they just go to sleep and they just pass out. So that's a new one that they have finding, and that's more cultural sensitive to know that some people react this way as well. They conserve energy by doing this, playing dead, blasting. Again, if you're in the forest and someone is coming toward you, you could just play dead. Just hide and play dead, or you could try to befriend them and, you know, be a friend to them. And many clients and many people that have horrible traumatic event, sexual abuse, befriend their abusers as a way to say, okay, you know, this will save me. Instead of, I cannot argue with him, domestic violence, child abuse, they do this. And this is what the latest research says. There's 5 responses. We're beyond fight and flight. There's also this idea that we could flop and just pass out, or we could just befriend. And this helped to explain why many people say, how come you stay in the relationship? Or how can you love someone that abused you? So that's what research shows. It's beyond fight and flight. So this is the idea. Now we're moving to the coming to the end. We're gonna move to what can we do with this now? What can we do to move forward? And the idea here is that I want to remind you that there's resilience, and we don't have time. We could give a whole workshop on how people are resilient, how people are able to learn, like I mentioned before. This idea that there is growth that could come out of this traumatic, horrible experience. We could find new strength, new purpose. If you look at the graph right here, most people go through, when they have a horrible event happens, many people actually, suicide have gone up. So many people react this way, suicide, anxiety. But then most people, they do resilience. And I always think of resilience as this idea of bouncing back. If you throw a ball on the floor, it doesn't stay on the floor, it bounces back. So you bounce back. So how can we bounce back? How can we move forward? And that's what I'm gonna cover in the last closing minutes. Any questions? So how can we move forward? Let's move forward by moving forward here. Here we are. So what are some of the things that we could do to cope? We move forward. I'm gonna suggest 4, and then I feel free to add any one that you want. So I only kept it to 4. There's many online. I review many of this one that are being posted, many of the literature saying, many of the APA, many of the Mental Health Association, what are they suggesting. I combine into 4. And this is what I found. And from my own experience and my own lesson learned as well, you have to name your losses. You really have to connect to that feeling that you're experiencing. It is normal to feel, like we just saw, it's normal to feel this range. We really have to connect. If you're feeling sad, if you're missing having lunch with your friends, if you are missing, whatever your loss is, you have to name it and you have to feel it. Next one is this idea that we have to have relational support. People who need people are the luckiest people. So we need people. We all need people. And more than ever, we need to reach out. We cannot isolate. I am isolated in quarantine, meaning physically I am isolated, but I am reaching out to my family. I'm in contact with my best friends. I'm talking to my coworker. I talk to my boss. But talk about beyond the news. Don't talk about the news. Don't talk about COVID. Don't talk about the political situation. Talk about your life. Talk about what you're feeling, your emotions, or maybe the goals that you want to do. Maybe you have an idea of how to help the community. Maybe you're thinking about things that you never thought. Maybe you're cleaning your class and you found some things that maybe you want to write the next book. Next one is this idea that we actually have to keep in mind that this too shall pass. This is an old saying, a very wise saying. Trauma is not here to stay. We will pass. This will not last forever. Whether it's 2 more weeks, one more week, 2 more months, we'll come out of this stronger. We could grow from this and we could find meaning, and just keep that in mind. And if anything, this is what, you know, the old folks or the old people used to say, this too shall pass. This perspective. Here's another one. You can find it online. It just talks about different ways to take care of yourself and idea. But I'll leave you with my last one. This one here, again, this is what I wanted to do. And this is why I titled this workshop, Moving Forward. Practice gratitude. And gratitude means being grateful for what you're grateful. Don't make it up. Don't say, I'm grateful for the world peace. What are you grateful for? I'm grateful that I have this computer. I'm grateful that I thought about bringing my computer, my laptop from work, and I have it here. So I'm grateful for that. I don't have to go get it. I'm grateful that I'm healthy. I am grateful that I'm healthy. I'm grateful that I'm in this country. And in spite of everything, we have leaders, we have community like United Way, We have many leaders, we have many people that want to do good. And we are in this together. We're not alone. So practice gratitude by being grateful and reflect and think about the future. What your future is going to look like after the storm, after we come out of this, what your life is going to look like. When I'm working with clients and we're coming to the end of the therapy, I always try to think about what is your life going to be like? And that's where the 6th stage comes in, that meaning making. We need to come out with meaning. And research shows for suicide specifically that people that lose someone to suicide, the people that are able to go over to healed, to become, to bounce back, are the people that are able to find meaning from the death. Not that it was grateful that it happened, but what can I make with this? And that's what I want to encourage you. What can you do? And with that, I'm going to leave you a question for you to think about. Think about this question. This is my last slide. What might be some of the lessons that we are experiencing now from this experience? So again, and with that in mind, think about what plans moving forward. What do you want to do? Maybe it's a good time to start thinking about goals. What places do you want to travel when this is over? Like, I'm ready to go, where will you go? What ideas do you have because of this? Maybe you came out with a great idea now. Maybe how are you going to parent? How are you going to parent your kids now? Maybe you realize, oh, maybe I'll spend more time. Maybe we'll have more this type of cooking together. Maybe I will do more of this. I've been cooking more. So I am going to cook more from home. What dreams you're now envisioning because of this pandemic? Don't think of the horrible situation, but what have I learned from this? And that's what trauma teaches us, that we could be stronger, that we could be the light in the world, that we could make a difference, and we ourselves could become stronger because of this. Thank you.
Awesome, Rafis.
Any
We
questions?
do have a question for you as well. Yes. What tends to happen to people who don't deal with their trauma and go through the stages? Why is it important to face your trauma and feelings?
So people that, in a nutshell, people that don't deal with this, they could keep going to the stages. They never get to the 6th stage of meaning. There's no meanings. Most people never get to acceptance. I cannot accept this happened to me. And that's why the people that keep saying, no, no. So people get worse. They just get worse. They stay stuck in depression. And unfortunately, majority of people, large number commit suicide. Their life is so horrible. It's just so no hope. They cannot see this moving forward that I'm encouraging you to see. They cannot see past this trauma. And they just say, I'm just better off dead, because if my life's going to be like this forever, this is why we exist. And this is why we need to provide mental health. This is why providing services like the program that I run right now, we're providing mental health to people that went to Parkland. Parkland is a traumatic event for those people and anyone, but especially if you lost your son, you send your son to school and they die this horrible death, it's a trauma. So now we are helping not only the clients, but we also the first responder. There's this one first responder that had to count identify the body and count the body. This is the reality. This is you went to work and this is what you had to do. So this is why we need programs like this. This is why I'm finishing my PhD. I'm doing my research so I could help other people. And because if you don't find the help and they don't get the help, they get worse. Yes, any other question?
Waiting a few seconds if anybody wants to unmute to ask.
You could unmute. Any comments, anything that I said that was maybe wrong or not clear?
My name is Debbie. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Debbie.
said that we should look ahead and think about what's on the other side of this. But for many, I think looking ahead is even more fearful, because if they don't have a job, if they don't know how they're going to pay their bills, isn't looking in the future going to be scarier?
It is for many people. And what I'm encouraging is we'll deal with those needs. And so we find, yes, I'm going to need a job, I'm going to need this. But past that, if we get the help, if they come to United Way, if they get the help that they need, what are your goals and dreams? What would you like to do past the need of, I need to find a job, I need this, I need food? Past that, what research shows is that people need to think positively about what are your hopes, what are your dreams, what do you want to do? 2 years from now. You're right. This is why I think that some people cannot think about moving forward right now, but I wanted to bring hope. Hope is what changes people. And having this idea that maybe not right now, and we work with clients, we do a treatment plan, we goals, not right now, but when I get through this 2 years from now, I want to become a teacher and I want to help kids. So I'm thinking about long-term goals. You're right. There's a real reality. For many people are going to be homeless. For many people, they're going to need our support. And this is what we hear for sure. I understand completely as a social worker, and I understand working in United Way. But I'm encouraging, and the idea is that when you talk to your friends, you talk to your close people, talk about, okay, when we finish with this, what would you like? We have to do a vacation. We got to do a trip. Where do you want to go? Think about future, because this is the question was asked before. If you don't get help, if you don't think about hope and future, then you come into this cycle of we are going to die. We are going to die. The whole world's going to end. We are going to get infected. The economy is going to collapse. This is the end. We need to see past the trauma. It's very hard to do. I know it's very hard to do. I'm just inviting you. Thank you for your question. Any
Anybody
other
else
question,
feel free
comments?
to unmute. Okay.
We have one more comment. Lights flashing.
They're comments, they're positive comments about your presentation.
Any questions or things that was not clear? Thank you for that, for making it realistic. I wanted to make this as realistic as possible, and that's why. But I wanted to encourage you that in my 20 years of working in this field, when I see clients moving forward and healing and getting better, are those that have hopes and dreams. That's why the 6th stage is important. How am I going to make meaning?
Hey, Rafis, it's Kathleen.
Yes.
Kathleen Cannon from United Way. Thank you so much for this afternoon. Wanted to make sure that folks that are tuned in and others that there is a contact number. We'll give you Rafis's number and United Way's number. You know, we're trying to respond to folks and all, but we don't know what's happening in everybody's life, you know. So we want to be able to give resources out there, get people through this. It's very traumatic. It's very unprecedented, and you're going to see some resources right now. It's important that folks reach out if they are in need of help, but reach out to each other for some connections as well. But we'll make sure that we get all these resources out. And Rafis, so well done. And I appreciate you being here on staff, working with obviously our Parkland families, but through this as well. And we will continue to respond to the community. And Rafis, thanks again. And thanks for all you folks for tuning in.
Thank you, guys. You have my contact. We could send you this PowerPoint as well, which has some resources. Thank you again, Kathleen, and everyone for the opportunity. Thank you for your time.
I'm sorry,
Yes?
this is Debbie
Sorry.
again. I have a different question.
Yes.
So I asked about people losing jobs, but I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm working all the time at home. I have a house, I have food, I have everything I need. But one thing that really troubles me is the guilt I feel, because I know that there are so many other people out there that aren't as fortunate as me. And I don't have enough money to solve all their issues. So how do I deal with that?
You know, that's a real question. I'm glad you asked. I did not cover that, but survival guilt is one of the big things when we go through a trauma. People that experience mass horrible situation. There's people still dealing with survival guilt from September 11th, survival guilt from Holocaust, so survival guilt from now. There is people out of this that are going to feel, how come I survived and my neighbor died at the hospital? How come I just got a cold? I took some medicine and I got better, and some people did not get better. It's okay to feel the guilt. You could think about what little grain of salt can you do? Maybe you cannot solve, like you said, the whole world, but you were at this presentation today. That's one step. What else can you do? Maybe you could donate some food. Maybe you could say a prayer for the people. Maybe you could go to your neighbor and knock the door with your mask on and say, what can I do for you? So we could do something. So how do we deal with survival guilt is by taking action. I survived. I'm one of the luckiest people. I have a job. But what can I do for those that don't have a job? That those that did not survive, their friends did not survive. So we do it by helping each other, by being a witness. That's my suggestion. If anyone else has a suggestion, what else can you do with survival guilt? But it's a very common thing. Actually, many people never get over this. And they become alcoholics, some people actually, or drink of substance abuse because they feel so horrible. We were in a car, for example, people are in a car accident and they're the only ones survival. They're the only ones survive. People are in a plane crash and they're the only one that survive. Imagine how you feel, the whole freaking plane, the whole plane, and you're the only one to survive. But there's people who talk around, and that's why the 6th stage come in. You find meaning and you say, there's a reason why I survived, and it's to do good and to make a difference. I was the only survivor in this plane crash, so I could do good. One of the books that helped me with my suicide of my dad was a book called Surviving the Fall, and it's by a medical doctor. And he talked about that his father fell, literally fell. And he survived the fall. He says, years later, I go back and I realize I survived the fall. So we could do things. How do you deal with guilt? You find something you could do to help others that are less fortunate. Was that helpful? So that's when you think about ideas, dreams, and goals, and things that you could do as we move forward. So maybe you could come up with a great idea to help people in your community. Maybe a way to raise funds or goals or new dreams. As a survivor, we are stronger because we survive. You have the power of saying, I was there. I was there. I went through September 11. I went through the pandemic. And because I went through that, I know what it feels like not to have food. I am going to help others. Was that helpful?
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any last minute comments?
I'm looking down here, see if there's anybody else who's typed in the comments section. Lots of great thoughts in there. Lots of people who are dealing with what I'm sure they originally had in their minds of living through this loss of gatherings, their business relationships, and so many other things that they're starting to see that there are positive things that you can do. There was somebody who says that they go out and assist with grocery shopping for elderly neighbors. Yes. So making that impact with your own community, with those nearby safely, seems to make people feel better, like they are making a difference during this time.
And we're going to we are united. We're going to have many ways that you could help and make a difference and do that as well. Again, on the screen you have these resources I forgot to share. There's, like, Ms. Cannon said, grief.com is something, if you want to learn more about grief, is by the creator of the David Kessler of the 6th Stage. There's many books actually suggesting. There's movies there that you could see. There's movies that suggest what movies to see while you're home now. 211. We help fund 211. There's many resources. If you know anyone in your community that don't have any resources, have them call 211.
Want to see a show?
So, and there is a SAMHSA website there that you could call. And of course, suicide hotline is 24 hours. And it's not only for suicides, anyone who's feeling depressed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rafis. This was fantastic. I'm personally going to put forward the finding gratitude in my day-to-day life. I know there were other people who said that they've lost have had an experience of loss of personal stability, loss of patience with their family. And I think these are all areas that we can put forth that idea of using gratitude, of being grateful for what we do have. I know that I personally have found the humor in what my children do, so I'm able to deal a little bit better that way. So that's definitely assisted me during this. So I appreciate you putting that in front of us as an option of something that we can use as a coping mechanism during this time. But thank you again to everybody who's been on the call and the webinar. All of your insight has been fantastic. I love how everybody was asking their questions and giving their comments. This was fantastic. Again, thank you to everybody who has been supporting our community during this time through your donations, through your gifts. If you would like to join Next Gen United or Women United or Tocqueville, again, let me know. I will send this video out to everyone. if you have questions from there, feel free to email me back. And I also will provide you with Rafis's contact information. And I hope that we all have an excellent rest of our week. If you have a little bit of contribution you would like to give to COVID-19 campaign through United Way of Broward County, we'd be happy to put those towards the amazing programs that we're currently working with to battle everything that people are going through during this time. So again, thank you to everyone. Thank you for being on. Thank you, Rafis, for your awesome presentation. And
thank you guys. Thank you for your comments.
See you all next
Bye.
week. Thanks, everyone.